Are you struggling to catch trout? Or you think you could be catching more trout than what you are? Well, in this video, I'm going to list a number of things that you might be doing wrong that if you change, well, you might just be able to help your catch rate. Hey, you! You're watching Robbie Fishing. Now, some of the tips in this video might be quite basic to a lot of people, but for some other people, they might be real pearls of wisdom that will help them catch more trout. And also, this is going to be based mainly around stream fishing for trout, such as the stream behind me. If you've come here looking for tips on catching trout in lakes, well, you might want to click off. Right, let's get started. The first thing, and probably the most basic out of all of them, is are there trout there? Now, while this might sound silly, I have seen people fishing in places where there aren't trout, and a good example was last year. I saw a man at the bridge at Tarawinji on the Ovens River in the middle of summer casting a selter to try and catch a trout. I gave him a few tips and I sent him up the Bright, way upstream in the mountains where the water's cooler, and I don't know how he went, but hopefully he caught a few fish. So as simple as it is, the first thing you need to do is do some research and make sure that the spot that you're fishing does actually have trout in it. The second thing is, are you walking upstream? In small streams, and most Australian streams in fact, walking upstream is the best way to go trout fishing, especially in small streams like this, because trout sit in these streams, they face upstream, they're designed to have the water go down past their gills, and also while they're facing upstream, they're looking to see whether any food is moving towards them. They never sit in streams pointing downstream, because then they can't see what's coming. So if you walk downstream, the trout will see you. Trout have got excellent eyesight and they'll see you coming from a mile away. Now, I know that in some parts of the world, fishing downstream is a good option, and that's usually when the rivers are really, really wide, and the trout fishermen will sometimes get in the streams, go like this and stir up all the rocks and gravel under their feet, which will dislodge nymphs and bugs and stuff, sending them downstream, and then they'll fish into the commotion that they've just created where the fish may have come in to feed. But in Victoria and most of Australia, most of the rivers and streams are too small for that, and you're better off to walk upstream, unless you're in one of the really big rivers like the Swampy Plains River or something like that. So in the smaller streams in particular, always make your way upstream, because if you're walking downstream, you're really going to struggle to catch fish. The next tip is, are you fishing too slow? I fish with a lot of people and they often make this mistake. They'll get to a nice pool like this one behind me here, and they'll cast and cast and cast, and they'll just keep casting. Then when they get to the top, they'll turn around and they'll cast back into the pool, and all they're doing is wasting time. At the moment, the water's dirty, so naturally you'll want to make more casts than what you normally would, particularly if you're lure fishing. But when the water's clear, which is most of the time, you just want to have 3 or 4 casts into a pool like that, move on. Because if you don't see a fish in the first few casts, either there's not a fish there, or there's not a feeding fish there. There might be some hiding under the rocks or something, and they're not feeding and you won't catch them. But if there's if there's a feeding fish there or an active fish there, you're going to know within the first few casts. Mate, 2 or 3 casts, move on, get to the next pool. 2 or 3 casts, move on, get to the next pool. Because by just continually hammering one nice pool like this, all you're doing is you're making it so that you get to fish less water. You're fishing slower, which means you're fishing less productive water. So folks, speed it up a little bit. Don't be scared to go fast. In saying that, don't go barging along the banks making a lot of noise. You want to walk slowly, but fish quickly, if that makes sense. 2 or 3 casts, then slowly make your way up to the next pool. Another mistake that I see so many people make is overlooking good water. Now, if you look behind me here, I've chosen this spot for a reason, because it's a good example. You'll see the nice big pool, then up there the creek gets really skinny, and this looks fishless because it's not deep. But there's still fish in those spots. A lot of people will fish this pool and then walk past all that skinny water on their way to the next pool, and quite often they'll spook fish. They'll see a fish dart off or take off or swim past because that fish has seen them and then got out of there. Don't be scared to fish the really skinny, small little backwaters, because when a trout's feeding, they'll often move into the tiniest, tightest little backwaters, and sometimes in only a couple of inches of water, just waiting for grasshoppers and bugs to fall into the water to eat. So don't walk past the fish holding spots. So many people focus on just fishing the really likely spots, but there's fish in the unlikely spots too, especially trout that just love to sit close to the edge in the shallows waiting for a meal. That's a big mistake that I see so many people make. Fish everything. fish everything, the good spots, the bad spots, and everything in between. The next tip, are you fishing second-hand water? I've spoken about second-hand water quite a bit on my channel. What that means is water that's been fished. I have just finished fishing this stream. I've walked right through there, and if you were to pull up now as soon as I leave and walk through there, you probably won't catch anything. It doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong. It means that it's just been fished, and therefore it's second-hand. You want to make sure that you're constantly looking down at the ground. Sorry, there's mosquitoes here. You want to make sure that you're constantly looking down at the ground as you make your way upstream, looking for footprints. Footprints in the sand, footprints in the mud, even wet rocks if it's only really recently been fished. If you see footprints or any sign that someone may have just been there recently, go somewhere else. You're wasting your time. Second-hand water is dreadful. How long does it say second-hand for? Well, that varies a lot from stream to stream. Bigger rivers generally recover quicker because people don't walk right up the middle. A little stream like this may take a few days to recover. Because it's so small, you're going to spook everything. When you walk up a big river, you might only spook a few near the bank. So try and avoid second-hand water at all costs. Next tip is, are you fishing the pools from too close? This is something else that I see a lot of people do. They'll get to a hole like this, walk straight up to the bottom of it and cast. Whereas I will make my way up through the rapids that you can't see down here, and I'll fish the pool from well back. Because trout, unlike us, foxes, cats, us humans, we all face forward. But trout and all fish, or most fish, they face up. So they can actually see a little bit behind them. So if you walk up too close, you'll spook the fish before you even get there, before you even make your first cast. So don't be scared to fish from well back. And on that note, don't go straight to the top of the hole. With a hole like this, you want to fish the bottom half, then the next bit, then the next bit. In fact, I just caught 2 trout in this pool when I fished it half an hour ago, doing exactly that. I fished the back bit, and then I fished the middle bit, then I fished the top bit, and the fish that I caught at the back didn't spook the fish from the top. So don't fish it from too close, and start at the back and work your way forward. Not only will that help you increase the chances of catching a fish in the hole, it'll help you increase the chances of catching a number of fish in one pool. The next tip is, are you silhouetted? Are you silhouetting yourself too much against the background? You don't need to go full camouflage, but you do want to blend in. A spot like this, full camouflage would be ideal. But just a checkered shirt, a flannelette shirt, just a green shirt, something that's the same colour, or something that'll break up your outline is ideal. This jumper, if you've watched my channel for quite a long time, you'll see that I often wear this in these types of videos, tutorials and product reviews, but you rarely ever see me wearing it when I'm fishing because it's got such a solid outline, and at the moment you can't see it, but the sky's really white and bright because it's just lightly raining. The fish will see me coming from a mile away. I'm silhouetted against the green background, I'm silhouetted against the sky. Now, even a white shirt can be better than a dark shirt that will silhouette against the sky. You don't want to silhouette yourself, but in all, you want to blend in. If you want to wear full camo, you can. My best mate Sandy does. We call him the camo man for that reason, and it works a treat. But you just want to, if you haven't got camo, that's okay. Just something that will break up your outline. I look like a big solid shape, whereas if I was wearing, say, a flannelette shirt that's got a checkered pattern on it, that'll help break up my outline. So make sure that you're wearing something that's not going to silhouette you against the background or the sky, because the trout will see you coming before you even get out of your car. Is your shadow on the water? That's something that a lot of people overlook, and it's critically important when trout fishing, because the moment, just say I was to walk up to this pool and there's a trout that's sitting there feeding, he hasn't seen me, but my shadow's creeping up on the water. The moment my shadow hits that fish, the fish is gone, is out of there. Shadows spook fish. So you want to make sure that your shadow is off the water. If that means late in the afternoon or early in the morning that you have to cast from well back, then so be it. That's what you've got to do. It's better to do that than it is to allow your shadow to creep onto the water, particularly when the water's really clear. So try and avoid having your shadow on the water wherever possible. Now, another mistake that I see a lot of people make is they stuff around too much. They waste too much time stuffing around. Less time stuffing around, more time fishing will guarantee you more fish. And a good example is constant lure changes. I fish with people, they'll use braided line, then they'll use their nylon leader or whatever leader they want to use, and they'll fish a pool, they'll make a dozen casts, way too many, catch no fish, then they'll sit on a rock, cut their line, get their scissors out, cut their line, tie a new knot on, tie a new lure on, fish the next pool, see no fish, sit on a rock, cut the line, tie the lure on. By this stage I'm 500 metres upstream and I've already caught half a dozen fish. And they've only fished a couple of pools, and then before you know it their leader's too short, so then they've got to stop and cut their braided line, tie a fandango knot to tie the new leader on again, tie a new knot. It's wasting time. What I like to do, I'll get in a pool or get in a stream and I'll walk upstream with whatever lure I've got on. I've got my go-tos, my favourite, and I'll leave them for another video one day. But I'll start with whatever I've got on, I'll fish a few pools. If I start seeing fish following my line or following my lure, but not attacking the lure, not hooking up, not striking properly, then I'll change. But if I'm not even seeing any fish, I'll be reluctant to change for quite some time. And then I might think I might try a different colour, then I'll try something else. But I certainly don't change every couple of pools. I stretch it out as long as I can because I want to go fishing. I don't want to go sitting on rocks tying knots and stuffing around. So less time stuffing around and more time fishing. As simple as it sounds, I fish twice as fast as most people that I fish with, and that's because I'm not stuffing around. I wander up, fish. I fish each pool quickly, then I slowly make my way to the next pool, fish it quickly, and I don't change lures until I think I have to. I don't just change every second hole for the sake of changing, because all that does is buy into my productive fishing time. I could be catching fish and not changing lures. Now, what I'm about to say now will totally contradict what I just said. And that is, are you stuffing around too much with the same lure? Now, I've just told you you don't need to change lures all the time. And I also said that if I've got fish following and not hooking up, I will change. And that's when you need to change. So if you've got the wrong lure on for whatever reason, if you're getting fish following your lure but not striking it, and then you get to the next pool and you get a follow and not a strike, change. That's when you do need to change. Change then, not when you're not seeing fish. Change when you are seeing them. If you keep persevering with the fish with the lure that isn't delivering the results, well, you can expect the same undelivered results. Change to a different colour. If you're using a green minnow and it's not working, try a black minnow, try a white minnow. If none of it's working, if you're just getting follows, try a soft plastic, try a bladed spinner. Keep trying until you eventually crack the code. Now, just to be clear, in my last tip, I said don't stuff around changing lures all the time. That was if you're not seeing any fish. If you're not seeing fish and you're not getting follows, don't waste time changing lures. But the situation now is different. You're getting follows, you're getting strikes, you're not getting hookups. That's the time to change. If you keep persevering with the same lure, you're going to be wasting your time. You can't expect the fishing results to change if you don't change what you're doing. So if you're seeing fish, you know they're there, you know they're active, you then need to change lures until you find what they're after. I call that cracking the code. So don't keep persevering too long if what you're doing isn't working. Now finally, are you paying enough attention? Are you being observant enough? Quite often I'm fishing with people and I'll say, oh, why don't you cast for that trout that rose up there? And they say, what trout? They didn't even notice it. Or they don't treat, did you see that fish swim past? Nah. Did you see the fish swim up into the back of the next pool? Nah. You've got to pay attention. God gave us eyes and we want to use them. Keep your eye open for rising fish. If you see a fish rise, cast to it because you know there's a fish there and you know it's feeding. If you see a fish swim into the back of the next pool and you know you haven't spooked it because you're too far back, cast to it. Use your powers of observation to physically look for fish. When we're cod fishing in the deeper rivers, we're not looking for fish. We're looking for nice fish holding spots, nice logs, nice snags, nice ledges or whatever. When you're trout fishing in streams, look for fish. You often see fish. Use your powers of observation. Look into the pool. Quite often you'll see a fish just sitting in the current doing this, just sitting stationary, waiting for a grasshopper or a worm or something to float past it. Cast to the fish. Don't cast on top of its head. Cast a good 1.5 meters, 2 meters upstream of it and bring your lure back down the fish. Use your powers of observation. Make sure you're being observant and just keep your eye on the water and look for fish. You'll see them rising, you'll see them swimming, you'll see them sitting stationary in the water. And when you see them, make sure you cast to them. Right folks, that's it. I think there's 10 or 11 tips just there. 10 or 11 things that you may or may not be doing wrong, or just a few general trout tips. I hope you've got something out of this video, and I hope that after watching this video you can put some of these things to test, and hopefully your catch rates might go up. Thank you all very, very much for watching.